How's it going, internet? So, a couple things. I wanted to let you guys know that I updated the website with the latest real estate numbers from Redfin, which are through May this year, as well as the labor data, or at least one of, we'll call it the two data series that measures local labor markets. Again, both of those things are metro level models, and the reason I put that stuff together is, and it's for free. Uh, I just want people to obviously be informed, and I think that there's a lot of value in just simply configuring the data a variety of different ways. I think it not only makes the analysis more insightful, but even just setting it up a certain way, I think makes for a quicker, more efficient analysis as well, at least in my opinion. So do with that what you will. So yeah, but the other thing I was thinking about is just, like obviously this wouldn't be the first time I've talked about this, just how like insane things are these days. I mean, obviously the cost of living issue. But I would just say more specifically, we there people have lost all perspective. Okay, I'm talking to this older gentleman the other day, and he's asking me all these questions about housing, and by the time the conversation is sort of coming to an end, you can tell that, I mean, this guy's a little nervous, and he's like, so basically, I mean, you're telling me that the value of my home could easily drop, at least theoretically 20, 30%, maybe more. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's the math. And that's kind of pretty much where the conversation ended. There was no sort of connecting the dots between, okay, well, how does this impact, like maybe a younger family, and if they want to buy a home, or uh, even renters, obviously, and they're the ones getting run over the most. But I mean, he literally could not connect the dots between the fact that his home price had literally doubled in the span of 5 years. And by the way, this is a person who hasn't had a mortgage in over a decade. Um, and that's just over a 5 year period, and how that could potentially impact uh, really other people in general. there's no consideration of that whatsoever. And I mean, look, man, I mean, your property literally went up 100%. You can't afford a 20 to 30% pullback. I mean, that's wow. Yeah. So, and look, I know people will say, it's all these boomers, man. And you look, they're okay, guys. Yes, right. There, a lot of those people are just they. It sort of comes with the territory. In general, you could say it's a generational thing, and that's definitely true. But they're not all bad. It's impossible for that to be the case. Okay, I know some really cool old people who know what's going on, and they're super sharp, and they're all about, like, you know sharing, honestly, like a lot of good insights with just maybe the younger generation. They get it. They're not dummies. But look, I mean, what I see uh, that's really come along with this idea that we're just propping up the wealth effect really at the expense of everything, right? I mean, that's why we have, we'll call it in a diplomatic way, speculation. I would just refer to this as degenerate behavior. Uh, is because that's where we're prioritizing that over everything else. And when I look at really these young people, and Nashville is a little bit of a younger town, And knowing what I know about looking at all this household data and everything else, all the demographics, like employment stuff, all of it, okay? When I look at that, down to county, city, town, census designated place, even a zip code, trended well over time, benchmarked against some of these other markets, like what's their financial situation, like how much of their monthly income goes towards, say, maybe rent, or like maybe if you're a younger homeowner, what does that look like with and without a mortgage? Basically, if you're a renter, you're just getting absolutely run over right now, and that's especially that much more true if you're a young renter living alone. And you really see that downtown, like right downtown. We're talking zip code 37203, and there's a very good reason that it showed up there first. I know people think it's just like an overbuilding issue, and it's only partly true. Uh, and the households themselves look atrocious. So let me just talk about that for a second to really kind of be very specific and just let you know how I look at things. Uh, okay, 37203, all the way back to 1990, it's had a very low home ownership rate of around, we'll call it 20%. Said another way, it's a renter heavy market. And even though it has a higher share of vacant homes now, which is around, we'll call it 20% of the entire housing stock, which is about double the national average of around 10, 11%, uh, you're still talking about an area that has a very high number of homes per capita. It's like 0.81-ish, give or take, in 2023, per those latest estimates. And it's not unusual to see something like homes per capita higher in a renter-dominated market because those households tend to be smaller. And when they are just smaller in size, mechanically it drives the housing units per capita measure higher. Just kind of has like a higher sort of plateau, if you want to think about it that way. But that measure, if you were to look at it well back in time, you're talking about it was around 0.5-ish, give or take. And now it's all the way up at 0.81. And so, look, what's happened is not only are there a lot of people living alone, but they also tend to be very young. All right. And like literally those estimates exist. Okay. And I look at it and it is so far outside of anything remotely close to resembling normal down there. And these landlords, oftentimes they're the corporate types and they utilize software like RealPage. Yep. I just said that, where you just raise the rent on people living alone and then you think that there are no consequences to that. Well, you know what happens when somebody's living alone? That means there's only one potential income per home. And if they're even young, or like if they're just younger in general, there's a higher concentration of them. Well, that means that in general, young people make less money. They are not able to absorb this just giant shift up in prices. And I've talked to several folks who are living down there, and they're just like, it's they don't care. I mean, like everything is so insane to them. It's it's like, well, I don't care anymore, and I don't blame them because around 30% of them are paying 50% plus of their monthly income towards rent. Okay, that's higher than the national average by quite a bit. Yeah, they shouldn't care. There's no housing shortage either. I get it. And I mean, it really is this kind of like great malaise. And honestly, like, I remember in the sort of peak of like the lockdowns and everything, and then you kind of get through, and then economy opens up, and it's revenge spending and this and that. You would have all these people, come to town, and it was much more biased to. It was just like a wave of young people and older folks, but it was more just now like a lot of young people. Now you just don't see that much anymore. It's like a lot of retirees coming here who still have money, and all these kids are like, well, It was good while it lasted, and it's just you can tell. I mean, the just the shift in sort of like behaviors around here, like the stimmies have worn off, and people are just getting run over, and they just don't care, and it's all for the wealth effect, and it's all because that's more important than anything. But yeah, it's not even isolated to that area either. I mean, you could look at a place like 37215, which is just south of downtown, very affluent area, high home ownership rate. Home ownership like costs relative to incomes look okay there. You are in general if you financed recently. You're going to be in that cost burden camp in general, but they look okay in the aggregate. Not on the home ownership side, renter side. Despite the fact that it is a high home ownership rate market, you're talking about now 37% ish, give or take. Renter households are paying 50% plus of their monthly income towards rent. And it's not just a bunch of multifamily. Okay. I mean, there's quite a bit of single family rentals in that market. So even now, you're seeing a place like Brentwood. And if you know anything about the area, just think Williamson County. Williamson County is just south of Davidson County, and that Davidson County is Nashville proper. It's very, if you were to just look at the MSA from a county level, that is by far the most affluent area. And despite that being the case, and people thinking that all these California people moved in and paid cash, which may be true on the margin, but it's definitely not true in the aggregate, you have seen a huge rise in extremely cost burden. We're talking 50% plus of monthly income is going towards home ownership costs out there. And the rate of change is just staggering. And I don't know who thought that it would be a good idea to qualify people for a mortgage that they likely cannot afford. So it's not just now hitting like really the vulnerable people, right? The young people. Okay, it's now impacting, we'll call it the more affluent types, because incomes are good out there, right, on paper. But now you're seeing the median price per square foot as of May of 2025 in Brentwood is actually negative year over year for single family. Okay, and that's a very heavy single family high home ownership rate market out there. So it's not isolated. You're just going to see more of this spread. And yeah, it's just all insane to me. But yeah, man, I feel bad for everybody who's kind of been suckered into like buying into this idea that there's a housing shortage, which there just isn't. I've shown it multiple ways. But more than anything, I kind of like look at these young people, and people may say, "Well, you're kind of young." I'm like, I'm pushing 40, so I'm not like, a fresh out of school kid. Those are the people that we're just doing a huge disservice to. And look, let's say you are, in a position to buy a home, right? You can't really do that knowing all this information because it's such a massive bubble. Okay, so it is very hard for people to think about anybody but themselves right now, and that is the last thing we need. So let me just say this. I mean, despite how crazy things are, there's still some good people out there who are offering a bunch of good information, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, like there may be a lot of noise, and it's hard to sort of sift through what's BS and whatnot, but it does exist. And yeah, maybe if there's one thing we can do that's productive right now is to maybe just be a little bit more informed. And yeah. So, man, that's like the most positive I've ever been on here. Man, I need to like wrap it up or something. But anyway, okay, guys. Yeah, have a good one.